So I want to thank everybody who helped yesterday, and I know we've already kind of said that, but yesterday was a good day. We got a lot of things done here at the church. A lot of stuff that you might not notice has been worked on here at the church, just even recently, but especially yesterday. All the ceiling lights in the multipurpose building, all of the lights when you walk down the hallway, you go into a classroom, every single one of them had bugs in them. I mean bugs. A lot of bugs. It was amazing. I looked at one and I thought, well, there's some bugs in that one. I looked at them all. They all had bugs. Apparently, there was a whole bunch of years worth of bugs in there, and surprisingly, some of them were still alive. It was weird. They had beards, but they were still alive. They didn't really have beards. I'm lying there, But all of that you walk in and it looks brighter, it looks clean, and it's because we don't have all the bugs in the kitchen and the storage area and the refrigerators and the freezers. They've been getting worked on over there. We give a breakfast to the students here at Parkview on Wednesday mornings for each week during the school year, and so we make a lot of food over there all the time, and so that is a busy part of our church, and all of that sort of thing got kind of cleaned out. The gutters got cleaned on top of on the side of the multipurpose building. We had the garage over there, and it got cleaned out. It looks amazing when you go inside there. We're trying to fit another van on the side in there, and so that got worked on, and we even got a little bit of work done here on the fence. Some of the rails that were all bent and out of shape got replaced. And when you jump in and you help at church, when you jump in like on a work day, when things like that are going on, and you have a moment where you can just take time and you can jump in, you really do make friends. And you really do feel connected. One of my friends here, Fred, I got to know Fred when we were cleaning out the garage the first time, as a matter of fact. And so you really do make connections with people, and you make some friends. There was a moment when I was in college where I was attending Christian Campus House, and Christian Campus House was where I went on Tuesdays and on Sunday nights. That's where I went. I went and I attended Christian Campus House. But then I went with the group to Mexico. And we did a lot of work in Mexico. We were at a town called Saltillo, and we were working on a church camp, and it was hot, and we worked together. And when I came back from Mexico, Christian Campus House wasn't a place that I attended. Christian Campus House was my group. It was my group because I had made friends. It's where I felt like I belonged. And so it had become a place where I went. It had become a place that I had attended to becoming my place. And I just want to invite you, if you're thinking about this church becoming your church, and for many people, you're kind of just thinking about that, you're invited. You're invited. You're invited to just jump in. You're invited to get involved. You're invited to just participate and then see where God leads you. And if this has been your church, well, where would you like to get involved this year? You've probably got with your bulletins this today, you've probably got a whole list of all kinds of ministries that are going on in this church, that have been going on in this church. Some of them are busy and big ministries. Some of them are small and they're not that busy, but they happen and they're important. But every one of those things where people are involved in a church, it's where you put your faith into action so that church becomes not just something you attend on a Sunday morning, but it becomes your church. People here become your friends. And the ministry at Parkview Christian Church, the ministry that we do this year is going to be whatever God leads you and me to do. And so where's God leading you? I just want to encourage you. It is so much fun to serve God with everybody and to just make friends and to make connections in church. And you might, when you look through that book, you might think, I'm already involved in one or more of these, and that's awesome. But if you see anything that you're interested in, if you see anything that's been going on in this church, it'll be in that booklet. If you see anything in there that you're interested in, I invite you, get in touch with the person who's heading that up, or just let us know here at the church that you're kind of interested in participating there. Or you can just go to our church website if you like. There's a place where it says Serve Jesus at the top. If you want to serve Jesus, just click on that, and then you can just let us know what you're interested in, and we'll get you connected with the people that do that, with the people that are doing that, and then maybe you can check it out. Or if you have a smartphone and you've got that little booklet, at the back of the booklet, there is one of those QR codes. You know, one of them square things that just look like somebody smudged the page or something. You know, it's got all that stuff. You just point your phone at it. It'll take you right to that place on the website. And you can let us know where you'd like to be involved. Or you might just be walking around this church today or next week, and somebody's going to come up to you and they're going to say, hey, would you be interested? And they're going to invite you to get involved in some way. If that happens, and there's a good chance it could, if that happens and somebody says, hey, would you be interested? I want you to take that as a compliment. Don't take that as somebody trying to condemn you to prison. Don't do that. But take that as a compliment. Because if somebody comes up to you and they say, would you be interested in, it's number one, it's because they already know you a little bit, and number two, they think you're awesome. They think you're awesome. That's why they're asking you. They think you'd be perfect for the job. I tell you, Cheryl and I are just really grateful, and we talk about it a lot. We're really grateful that we get to serve Jesus with all of you and to be a part of this church family. And to have days like we had yesterday when we got so much done, and we had a lot of fun doing it together. But more than that, Cheryl and I are grateful for just being able to serve Jesus and to see Jesus work in everywhere we've been, and every year of our life together, just being able to serve Jesus and to see Him work. Because when it comes to Jesus doing His thing, when it comes to Jesus changing lives and doing His work, if you're in a church, you're going to have the best seat in the house. You're going to see it all the time. It's going to be right in front of you. If you're in a church, if you're in a ministry, and when it comes to Jesus doing His thing, you're going to have the best seat in the house. And I'm just so grateful for that, and I know you will be too, especially as God works in and around you. So there's something important I want to talk about when it comes to that sort of thing, and when it comes to something that the Bible shows us. And it's in the book of Psalms. And Psalms is the easiest one. If you follow along with an actual Bible, some of you follow along with a phone, and you might have the YouVersion Bible app, and it's got all the verses already there, and you can just take notes right on the phone. Some of you just look up here on the screen because that's where the stuff's going to appear, and you can just read it up there. But if you're following along with the Bible, you're in luck. The book of Psalms is easy to find. You just open it up to the middle. It's almost impossible to miss. It's got 150 chapters. Well, we call them chapters. They're songs, really, is what they are. They're songs. And they're worship songs. They're the kinds of things that would be sung, that would be read in worship for ancient Israel. A lot of them were written by King David, so he wrote a lot of them. But really what you've got is like an old songbook, an ancient songbook of all of these songs and writings that they would use in worship. And you know, when you write a song, it comes from the heart. You know, when you write a song, you're just pouring out your heart. When you sing a song, a lot of times you're just pouring out your heart because those words kind of resonate with you. They connect with you on some deeper level. That's what you're looking at when you're looking at the book of Psalms. We're going to look at Psalm 18 today. It's a psalm of thankfulness. And so we're going to talk about being thankful, which sounds like something your mom would say. You know, your mom would look at you and say, okay, what do you say? Oh, thank you. You know, it's just, you know, sometimes we think about thankfulness. That's not the most earth-shattering thing in the world. But let me tell you, I think thankfulness is more important than we realize. What would you think if you came home and you found a cookie just right there, like somebody had left it for you? Would you be thankful? Would you think that God put it there? Like, and not just any cookie, one of them cake cookies they sell at Walmart. They got the icing on top of it, and that thing was just sitting there, all 250 calories of it, just right there. Actually, I think it's only like 180, but right there, just like somebody left it for you. Well, I have a video, no sound, but I have a video of a lady that came home, and it looked like she was having a bad day, and then right there was a cookie. So let's see if I can get this to go. Maybe. Well, looks like I went past it. Or it's just being mean. Here we go. It's not going to work. Okay. Well, do you see her? Oh, there she is. Here we go. Oh, she comes home. She's carrying all that stuff. She's going to open it right there. Somebody left her a cookie. Here's who left it. Yeah, he's got to get up there. There we go. And put it where she can find it. Right there. There you go. Okay. And then my video's stopping again. And he looks very proud of himself, and he hops down. That's kind of what goes on. Sorry about the video being kind of choppy there. He looks very... So apparently, it turns out that she feeds the squirrels. And this one decided to say thank you. It was one of the cutest things I saw all week, and I thought, well, I've got to share that. That's got to fit in this sermon somehow. But let me tell you, when you watch that, it's kind of fun, and it's because thankfulness is the ground, it's the soil that joy comes out of. I mean, thankfulness it's a source of joy, and being thankful builds up the joy, and that's not only true for people who feed squirrels. It's true for every one of us. And in the Bible, we talk about the fruit of the Holy Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. All those kinds of things are in there. Joy is the second one. We're supposed to, when we've got the Holy Spirit, when we're following Jesus, we're supposed to have things that we celebrate. We're supposed to have joy. And let me tell you, there are a lot of things that you need to have, in your life or in this or in that. If you want to be healthy, you gotta have certain things. You gotta have good food. You gotta have the proper nutrients. If you don't have all the proper nutrients, your health is going to suffer. You got to get some exercise. And anytime you're missing something, they always say, well, you've got a deficiency, or you've got to add this to your life. If you want your car or your truck to run good, you need oil, you need coolant, you need filters. Every time I go to get my oil changed, they're always showing me that I need to change my filters. Hey, look at this, we found a dog in it, and it's not working. We'll sell you one for $400, and I'm like, my wife works at O'Reilly. I'll buy my own. It's a lot cheaper. But if we want to be healthy in our walk with God, if we want to be on fire for Jesus, if we want to have joy, let me tell you, it starts by being thankful to God, by being thankful to Jesus. And it's a lot more exciting to preach hellfire and brimstone, let me tell you. It's a lot more cool sometimes to preach on some controversial topic. But I don't know if I'm ever really going to hit a more important one than this. It's important that we realize and we're thankful between us and God, because it focuses us where we need to be. Not on all the worries, not on all the burdens, not on all the worldly stuff, but on the fact that God is here, that He's in my life and in your life, and He's working all around us all the time. And we've got a great seat when we're in a church. But no matter where you happen to be, God's working in your life, and maybe because He worked in your life, that's why you're here today. One of the things that you notice is that thankfulness recognizes that God's here. It recognizes Him. It reminds us that God is here. We're going to look at two Psalms today. One of them is from David. It's in here in Psalms chapter 18. And one of them's from Jonah. You might not think Jonah had a psalm. Jonah has his own psalm. It's in chapter 2. We're going to look at that. But first, let's look in Psalm 18. And the reason why I picked the two of them is because there's some phrases in Psalm 18 that Jonah borrowed when he wrote his. He uses some of the same themes, some of the same phrases. And Jonah would have sang, he would have known the Psalm 18 because they would have sang it in the temple. It would have been part of their worship. So I don't blame him at all for borrowing a phrase here or there and throwing it in there or following the same theme, because Jonah had worshiped God before in the temple. And one of the things he had likely sung before is Psalm 18. And when you get to Psalm 18, and you open up a Bible, the paper version, you'll notice this. They don't always include this in the electronic version. So if you got it on your phone, you won't always see this. But if you got a paper Bible, you'll see it. It says, for the choir director of the servant of the Lord David, who spoke the words of this song to the Lord on the day the Lord rescued him from the grasp of all of his enemies and from the power of Saul. Now it goes on to say, he said, I love you, Lord, my strength. And you'll have that on your phone. You'll have that on your electronic version. But you don't always get this part, where it says, for the choir director, understand where this song came from. It came from David, who spoke the words of this song to the Lord on the day that the Lord rescued him from the grasp of his enemies and from the power of Saul. Saul was trying to kill him. You can read the story in the Bible. This song was connected with David's life. And so when he writes this, he's not just writing this because it sounds good. He's not just writing it because it's some abstract thing. He's writing this, he's pouring out his heart to God over something that really meant something to him because it connected with things that were going on in his life. Of the time when God rescued him, when the time when God took care of him. And so we look at this psalm, and they officially classify this as a psalm of thankfulness. They officially classify it. But David right here, he's not just trying to write a psalm of thankfulness. David is pouring out his heart. He's recognizing that God has worked in his life, and he's grateful about it. He wasn't just trying to be spiritual. He was just being real. God had worked in his life. God had finally brought him to a place of victory. It had been a long journey. You could read the story of David in the Bible. It was a long journey, a lot of things that he went through, a lot of ups and downs, but he apparently comes to this moment where everything, he finally gets some victory. And he's pouring out some thankfulness. And he says, those victories, when things started going better, that was from God. That was from God, who always looks out for me, who never gives up on me, who always keeps working on us. He was just thankful. He goes on to say this. In verse 3, he says, I called to the Lord who is worthy of praise. It says, I was saved from my enemies. In verse 4, he says, the ropes of death were wrapped around me. The torrents or the waters or the floods. That word there kind of refers to streams and waters and floods. He says, the torrents of destruction terrified me. He says in the next verse, the ropes of Sheol, that's the place of the dead, entangled me. The snares of death confronted me. He says in verse 6, I called to the Lord in my distress. I cried to my God for help from His temple. He heard my voice, and my cry to Him reached my ears. Reached His ears. It's a song, and he's being all poetic about it, but what he's being poetic about is that he had reached the point where he was just almost giving up. He was in distress, but he felt like he was dying. He felt like that everything was going wrong. The ropes of death wrapped around me. The torrents of destruction terrified me. He was at the point to where it all looked hopeless, but he kept praying. He kept calling to God in his distress. And God, from His temple, he said, He heard my voice, and my cry to Him reached His ears. It's poetic, but poetic is what we do when we're trying to describe how we feel. We're just trying to describe how it felt when God rescued us, when God rescued him. And kings weren't usually like that. You know, David being a king, kings weren't usually like that. Kings didn't like to admit that they needed help. Kings, especially in ancient times, didn't like to admit that they might not know everything, or that they might not be the most powerful. They were always wary of stuff like that. You had to be really careful, especially in Eastern culture, when you were speaking to a king, that you didn't accidentally make yourself feel like you were smarter or knew something that he didn't, because he might kill you for that. They didn't like to admit that they had any weaknesses. Politicians are kind of like that sometimes. It's just human nature, I guess. Leaders like to brag on themselves. They don't like to show weakness. And when you read the ancient writings from the Egyptians, or you read the ancient writings from the Hittites, or you read the ancient writings from the Assyrians, you know, the leader, the king, the general, they're almost always the hero of the story. When they write it, boy, they're the hero. Aren't they awesome? That's not what you see here with David. What you see here with David was, I felt like I was going to die. I felt like that I was getting dragged down to death. My enemies were getting the better, were getting the better of me. David humbled himself, because thankfulness does that. When I'm thankful, I'm expressing thanks to somebody. It's a humbling thing, because I'm recognizing that someone else was there for me. I'm recognizing that I didn't have all the answers. And when we're thankful to God, it puts us where we need to be, and that is humble before God, because He's the one who can do everything that we need. He's the one that can accomplish the things that we can't accomplish. And for David, he felt like what God had done for him was just epic, was just incredible. And so he wrote it like that. He wrote it all poetically. He recognized God and he humbled himself. He was helpless, but God was his help. It's kind of like an actor who accepts an award and starts to thank everybody who got him there. That's actually, it's a good thing to do, because it's the opposite of bragging. It's the opposite of putting ourselves on a pedestal. Being thankful humbles ourselves. I don't know if you guys remember this, because this was a long time ago. I'm old. Most of you guys have never heard of the Temple of Doom, or do you remember those? You remember that movie? There was a little kid in it. It was a child actor. He was called Short Round. Anybody remember Short Round? Yeah. I remember Short Round. His name is, I don't know if I can say this right, Ke Huy Quan is his real name. And yeah, that's the guy, as a matter of fact, right there on the left. That was Short Round. Apparently Short Round, as a child actor, he kind of fell out and didn't do much more for about 30 years. But last year he won a Golden Globe. And last year he won an Oscar. He went from just disappearing to all of a sudden showing back up and really being recognized. He did a good job in some of the stuff that he's been in. He's in more things now. He got up on stage after the Golden Globe, and it was the first award that he had won since his child acting days. It's the first time he'd ever really had a job in a movie since his child acting days. And he said something that I thought was pretty incredible. He says, "When I started my career as a child actor, I felt so lucky to have been chosen. As I grew older, I started to wonder if that was it, if that was just luck. For so many years, I was afraid I had nothing more to offer. Thankfully, more than 30 years later, two guys thought of me. They remembered that kid, and they gave me an opportunity to try again. And in that moment, as he's holding the Golden Globe like he's holding there, he looked at those two guys. And he said, 'Thank you so, so much.' And he just started pouring out thanks. And then he looks at his wife, who's sitting right there. And he says, 'I want to thank the most important person in my life, the one person that never stopped believing in me.' And let me tell you, at the Golden Globes, all these self-important people were all tearing up. Because being thankful is moving, it's deep, it's humbling. And when we're thankful to God, we're recognizing that it's not about ourselves, it's about Him. and what He does and what He can accomplish. And it just centers us where we need to be when we're thankful to God. That's what David was doing, that even though he was a king, he still put God on the pedestal and himself down below, bowing before God. Everything is from Him. Being thankful is so important, and it does create that joy, because when we're humble, we recognize that God is everything we need and He loves us. And thankfulness doesn't wait till everything's perfect. Thankfulness recognizes God during a storm. You know, that's where that bulletin cover came from today, recognizing that there's some great things that are going on, even when sometimes we're still in the midst of a storm. We're recognizing how awesome that God is today, even though our week may be tough this week. It might have been tough last week. We may be dealing with some things, but God is still incredible, kind of like those two people, one of them proposing to the other one with a tornado in the background. That is not Photoshop. They really did that. I think that tops what I did, and I did pretty good, I thought, but that I never timed it with a tornado. Well, another psalm of thanksgiving I kind of want to show you just real quickly is a psalm of thanksgiving in Jonah, in chapter 2. And the fun part about Jonah is that when he says that he prayed to God, and it kind of gives you this prayer that Jonah prayed to God, and he's doing it, but he's inside the fish. He's praying this prayer inside the fish, and most of the time we think, because it just seems like it should be this way. And if you've watched the TikTok video where they used AI to recreate Jonah so that it looked like that Jonah was talking to his cell phone and doing like a TikTok from inside the whale, that's my favorite one, by the way. I love that one. But even then, he's like, boy, I'm hoping I get out of here, That's what we think, that he would be inside the whale and that he would be begging God to save him. But that is not what the Bible says. That's not what's in his prayer. He doesn't even mention the fish when he's in the belly of the fish. It's a psalm of thanksgiving. He even borrows from Psalm chapter 18. He never asked God to save him. He's spending the whole time thanking God for already saving him. So in verse 5, you read this: the water engulfed me up to my neck, the watery depths overcame me, seaweed was wrapped around my head. He says in the next verse, I sank to the foundations of the mountains, down at the bottom of the ocean. He says, I sank to the foundation of the mountains, of the earth's gates shut behind me forever. He went down into the water. He thought he was going to die. And then he says, but you raised my life from the pit, Lord my God. He goes on to say, and as my life was fading away, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer came up to you, to your holy temple. Jonah was grateful that God had saved him from drowning. Jonah was thankful that God had saved him from the depths. The ocean depths had saved him from death. And while it's still dark around him because he's inside the fish, he's telling God, thank you. And after he gets done with the prayer, the Bible says, then the Lord commanded the fish, and it vomited Jonah on the dry land. He was thankful inside the fish because God had saved him. He was thankful before he was out of trouble. And it reminds me that we don't wait till everything's perfect. We can start thanking God today for all the things that He's already done, and just trusting Him to take care of the rest. When we come here today in this church, you might be dealing with trouble. You might feel like right now that your life is still surrounded by darkness, but you can still be thankful in the middle of that darkness. You can still be thankful in the midst of all of that trouble, because whatever brought us here, whatever baggage that we might have carried when we walked in today, we can remember God, and it can center us where God needs us to be. We can be thankful even during a storm. And when we recognize God, it makes our life so much stronger. Makes our life so much stronger. Can I show you something? It's out of the book of Colossians, and in chapter 3. I did not know this was here until last night. I saw this, I wanted to share it. In Colossians chapter 3, verse 15, 16, and 17, actually there's a whole section there. Paul is explaining to people, here's how you be a Christian. Here's what you need to do. And he gives them a whole list of things. Here's the kind of attitude you have. Here's the kind of things you need to be doing. He gives them a whole list. Here's some things you need to do when you're a Christian. He says in verse 15, let the peace of Christ, to which you are also called in one body, rule in your hearts, and be thankful. He says in the next verse, let the word of Christ dwell richly among you in all wisdom and in teaching and admonishing one another through psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing to God with gratitude in your hearts. Verse 17, and whatever you do, in word or in deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God through Him. In this, being thankful was everywhere. Whether you're letting the peace of Christ rule in your heart, whether you're letting the word of Christ dwell in you richly, or whether you're doing anything, he says, in word or deed, be thankful, be grateful, be thankful, because God is everything. It's about Him, not me. It's about Him, not us. And let me tell you, yesterday we had a great work day, but I am thankful for Fred, because he bailed me out. I've been bragging in every board meeting that I knew how to fix fence. And you know that whole deal about you have to measure twice and cut once? Because, I mean, if you cut, you can't add more to it again. You know that? It's still true. You still need to measure twice and cut once, as it turned out. Because me, the guy that thought he knew what he was doing, messed up and cut something too short. And not only that, but I was trying to figure out how in the world we're going to fix it. I got to go buy a new one. I go find one, and Fred bailed me out. He says, no, we can just do this, and we won't, and it'll be done. And he was right. He was right, and I'm grateful, and I'm thankful, and I'm humbled. But when we're thankful, we remember that God was there for us when we needed it. When we're thankful, we remember that God is not going away, that He's always going to be there, that He's always got it, that it's always going to be okay. He's working around us, He's working in us, He's growing us, and when we're thankful, we're putting Him on the pedestal.